The Chinese Navy outnumbered the local U.S. escort 3-1. Fighters fueled on the Shandong were airborne. A submarine was closing from the southwest. On paper, the Americans had minutes before being overwhelmed. Yet, instead of firepower, what neutralized the attack was information. The battle ended not with explosions, but with a quiet retreat. What exactly flipped the odds, and how? The moment you see the hidden American advantage, the logic of the entire outcome becomes clear. Before we move on, I will like you to subscribe to the channel and like the video. How does a three-direction naval assault collapse without a single missile being fired? On the surface, it looked like a textbook trap. China pushed forward one of its newest Type 52D destroyers, sprinting at high speed around the edge of the American column. At the same time, the carrier Shandong sent up a flight of J-15 fighters, their afterburners carving vapor trails as they rose into a combat formation. Sliding in from the southwest, almost unseen, a Type 39 submarine pressed forward beneath the surface, preparing to cut off any American escape. 3 attack vectors, 1 converging point. The kind of maneuver that should have pinned escorts against the sea and air with no room to breathe. Yet minutes later, the pressure drained from the Chinese advance. Not a single launch order was carried out, because their strike was already unraveling in the background. The destroyer held the most visible advantage. Its phased array radars could track dozens of targets and direct long-range missiles toward American aircraft, threatening to thin the protective screen. The submarine's role was perhaps more dangerous, sliding under the waves to stalk whatever ship tried to peel away, prepared to unleash guided torpedoes into the escort line. Meanwhile, the Shandong maintained its sortie of fighters, each one carrying missiles meant to pin U.S. patrol planes and force them back beyond useful range. This was the look China wanted, the picture of command, numbers, and encirclement. For several tense minutes, every indicator favored them. A carrier, a submarine, and an advanced surface combatant pressing in together carried the image of an unstoppable push. But the cracks showed early. The J-15s that climbed off the flight deck weren't long-range predators circling for hours. They had left the deck with a compromise. The Shandong's ski jump launch deprived them of the catapult power needed to take off loaded with both long-range missiles and full fuel tanks. Pilots instead carried lighter loads, meaning reduced endurance. Every second on combat patrol drained reserves that could not be quickly replenished. In a real standoff, the clock worked against them. They would have to either turn back within minutes or risk falling from the sky. A strike package designed to hem the Americans in was already shrinking in duration. That endurance problem only grew worse when layered onto China's communication method. Instead of an uninterrupted tactical picture, the fleet leaned heavily on voice radio, hand signals, and line-of-sight signaling across decks. Orders traveled slowly. A destroyer captain had to translate intent, then relay back updates the same way. Contrast that to the American force that faced them. A tightly knit information chain where Link 16 terminals on ships and aircraft merged into a single shared screen. This network meant a submarine, a jet hundreds of miles away, and a cruiser in the middle saw the same contacts instantly. On the Chinese side, seconds became minutes. For Americans, updates required no words at all. Icons shifted across their screens, faster than human voices could ever manage. That subtle gap defined the opening phase. China had the numbers in the immediate ocean around the U.S. force, but power rested on coordination, and coordination rests on communication. Where one navy looked fluid, the other looked fractured. So when we ask how a complex maneuver dissolved before anyone squeezed a trigger, the answer points not to weapons, but to tempo. Without the ability to adapt in unison, the Chinese encirclement was only a temporary picture of power, already collapsing before the Americans revealed their next card. And what set that collapse in motion had actually been in place long before Beijing issued its challenge. The hidden system that undermined the entire maneuver was already active, watching quietly from above and below, waiting to shift the balance without firing a single shot. How could a fleet fight be decided before either side even fired? The answer started thousands of feet above the ocean. An E-2D Hawkeye circled at 25,000 feet, its disc-shaped radar dome scanning hundreds of miles in every direction. To the men in the U.S. carrier group below, that airborne radar picture meant no surprise attack was possible. Each ship already knew where opponents sat, how fast they were moving, and what altitude their aircraft climbed to. For the Chinese fleet, that level of vision simply didn't exist. Their sensors stretched far, but not far enough, and not without gaps. Those gaps were widened by the arrival of electronic attackers. While the Hawkeye painted the entire battle space, EA-18G Growlers began their quiet assault. They jammed frequencies, inserted phantom contacts, and stretched China's limited radar picture even thinner. Operators aboard the Shandong could see blips that weren't real and lost track of actual threats that slipped away unseen. What looked like an American weakness earlier was now a strength. Every radar operator in the strike group merged into one common image. To describe it, sailors later said, the network lit up like a live map, shifting together as each unit updated the other. No individual ship had to guess or wait for orders. When a contact appeared or a fighter banked left, everyone saw it instantly. By contrast, on the Chinese side, information crawled by voice message, words garbled by static, each captain grasping for clarity in the middle of mounting chaos. The clearest imbalance, though, stayed tucked beneath the waves. Quietly shadowing the Shandong, a Virginia-class submarine had been in position long before the surface clash even began. These nuclear attack submarines are designed to stalk without detection for weeks, moving silently and using advanced sonar to tag every sound. The Shandong never knew it was there, nor did the Type 39 diesel-electric submarine, which itself had tried to close in against the Americans. That boat, which could be very lethal in near-shore waters, depended heavily on remaining unseen. But against layered American sonar nets, it did not enjoy the same invisible cloak. Instead, the moment it tried to maneuver into position, its presence was logged. Worse, as the Americans tracked it, Chinese systems remained blind to the Virginia slipping alongside their prized carrier. This blind spot carried deeper meaning than just one submarine tailing another vessel. It exposed the limits of China's undersea warfare strength. Once a Virginia was in place, not only could it shadow, it could target if needed. A carrier group's core asset, its flight deck, was walking unknowingly with a predator at its flank. For Chinese commanders, that meant accepting at any moment the Shandong could vanish beneath the sea, taken out with barely a warning. All this while, their aircraft still circled with the clock ticking on fuel drains, and their destroyer captains waited for voice commands that came too late. The weaknesses tied back to one point: information flow. The American strike group treated every link in the chain, from jet to sub to cruiser, as part of one integrated voice. Every sensor threaded together into the Link 16 network. China depended on individuals talking into radios that could be disrupted, delayed, or jammed. Faced with holes in their radar, unknown threats under the sea, and pilots who could not stay airborne long, the Chinese Admiralty called for a disengagement. The encounter showed that the most decisive weapon was not the missile tubes or fighter squadrons on deck, but the ability to see, share, and act on information faster than the opponent. Coordination across air, sea, and undersea platforms built a shield more powerful than armor. Wars are not only prevented by threatening destruction, but by showing such clear readiness that escalation becomes pointless. The Chinese fleet withdrew not from battle damage, but from blindness. Future conflicts may not erupt in fire. They might be settled in silence, defined by networks already running, long before a trigger is ever pulled.